Alright, so, I don't even know how to say this dude's name. Otherm, Reatu, in response to our appreciation for the general strike in Minneapolis, in response to a state sanctioned killing of someone merely exercising their First Amendment rights. I know you people don't believe in that. We still do. Quote, I can't understand caring that much about a single person you've never known. Has to be fake, just like all their values. Unquote. Alright, author and re-8tu. I was like, way to drive home the point, bud. You want to know their other response?
Yeah, because I can't see it.
This is a quote, fake virtue signaling. You want to pretend to care for people you don't know because you think people will kiss your feet for it. It's just not possible for those emotions about a random stranger to be authentic. Normal people know this. Bad things happen when you insert yourself into a violent situation. You can't just sign up to create chaos one day and then be upset when the chaos strikes.
Hang on a second. Wait, read that first sentence again in the second comment.
Fake virtue signaling. You want to pretend to care for people you don't know because you think people will kiss your feet for it. It's just not
Okay.
possible. Yeah.
Possible. Right. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, understanding this correctly, having a base level of compassion and empathy for other human beings is not normal.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I can infer from this. Do I have that right?
This is what people believe.
There's no, that's not real. That's the irony. That's what's not real. This idea that it's not normal to care for people that you don't know, that's not normal. That's not real.
See, this is a great segue into the show. I'm going to stop the screen share.
Okay.
This is a great segue into what we're going to talk about. Because this is the problem with the conservative death cult, which is what it is. Okay? You can argue with me if you want to. You can argue with your mama. All right? You all want people to die and you want them to not have... Like, you folks are really out here wishing people can't afford to go see the doctor, can't afford to pay for their prescriptions, can't afford to buy a house, can't afford rent. Like, you have no moral compass. You have no political ideals, no symbol to march towards, no ideology except wanting other people to die in the most worst way possible. That's terrible grammar, and you know what? It fits for who I'm talking about.
And let's pause and let's rewind. Run me the tape from September 12th, 2025, when some of these same people were screaming, crying, throwing up, asking ChatGPT to write them these 11 paragraph essays for their 50 Facebook followers about how Charlie Kirk is a martyr, and they're so deeply moved by everything that he did for the movement. That's what they call it, the movement, because they're co-opting that language. And then you're going to run to the comment section of a random fucking YouTube channel and be like, actually, compassion and empathy for people isn't normal. Save that shit for somebody that has fewer brain cells than either people on this screen right now.
Come on, man. That your comment is actually the thing that's abnormal. Like, most normal... Like, you don't even have to really care about... Like, most normal, sane human beings have something called empathy. Now, Charlie Kirk famously, I'm not going to get this quote right, but said that empathy was something made up and that people shouldn't have. All right, and so
Right.
maybe...
And that's when we started hearing about the sin of empathy.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe other re-8tu is like a Charlie Kirker. You don't believe... Although I'm sure you wanted people to have empathy for you when your dear podcast leader was shot. I am never going to pretend to exist and live in a world where people think having empathy for other people, particularly when it comes of violence being rendered against them, and even more particularly when that violence is rendered against them by the state. I refuse to ever live in a world in which I will not call that out for what it is, which is evil and ludicrous and not a standard emotional response for anyone who's living a sane, normal life with community and people that love them.
I hear you. Also, I'm not done. The chances of that person not really being a person and being a bot, unbelievably high.
True that.
unbelievably high, but I'm still going to use it as a teaching moment because I'm never not going to try and teach people shit. I guarantee you, if that's a real person, same person who posts the like stand for the flag, kneel for the cross memes that like wants to talk about how we need to show respect to when we talk about our soldiers, our troops, our armed forces, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day. You want people to show reverence and respect for people who sacrificed everything for this country, for the founding fathers. Bitch, you don't know them. You don't know them either. This is also in the category of people that you don't personally know. And that sense of compassion and empathy hasn't really gotten us anywhere as a country. But I think it's not a radical idea to have compassion and empathy for people like Renee Good or Alex Preddy or Keith Porter. Or we could spend this entire very short episode today just going down a list of names of people that it's entirely appropriate to have compassion and empathy for who we don't know. But that's maybe beating a horse that's real dead.
Politics as usual, which is part of the problem. That this is just like a mainstream. Like, one, probably is a bot. Two, even with the likelihood of it being a bot, there are still like whole living, breathing human beings who like believe this and have the audacity to like type it out. So even if this one is a bot, I know there are folks out there who actually think like this, which is pretty sad. That's a different conversation. And three, like I really think stuff like this was on Discord and Reddit, and I wouldn't put Reddit in dark corners of the internet, but other dark corners of the internet 10, 11 years ago. And now you are totally not that far-fetched likely to encounter someone who claims they are conservative, who's like, yeah, why do you care about these people you've never met? And I'm here to tell you something. As soon as you have a group of so-called civilized people who there's a not so insignificant contingent of them that no longer believes in any concept or idea of empathy, on whatever scale empathy exists for you, you think that your identity will protect you. And what I'm trying to tell you is that it won't. And what I'm trying to tell you is that empathy is a collective sort of human emotion, human belief, human endeavor that in a lot of ways protects all people from certain demises, regardless of what you look like, regardless of where you come from. But I know that doesn't apply. You think that doesn't apply because you don't actually think that people who don't look like you, don't believe what you believe, and don't have your shared history are Americans. And so only empathy for people who are Americans, and your definition of Americans is white, evangelical, conservative. And so I get that. But those numbers don't work out for you, if that's you. And I'm going to name that there. But anyway.
And a lot of these same folks call themselves evangelicals. Let me go back to the beginning and y'all let me know where I fucking lost you. But if you don't think that it's normal to have compassion or empathy for people that you've never met, I'm going to hold your hand while you explain to me what you think the definition of evangelical is. Because at this point, then what's the point? What's the point of evangelizing? What's the point of talking about, what's the point of mission trips? What's the point? I'll wait.
Welcome to Politics as Usual. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with your homies. You know what I mean?
Go ahead and comment if you want to.
Comment if you want to. We're going to be putting stuff on black. Because that's the thing, right? It's just, look, we're already, by virtue of having this, by virtue of putting stuff out into the ether for anybody to find, we're already putting ourselves out there. That's fine if you don't want to do that. There are other comments on here that are like, all right, whatever. I'm not gonna respond to that. It's not as distasteful. That's just a distasteful, like flat out, like ridiculous comment, and we're gonna flag it, right? We're gonna let the whole world see what you feel about a basic human emotion called empathy. That's what we're gonna do.
It's brain dead. It's a brain dead comment, is what it is.
That's what these folks do. Speaking of brain dead comments, just operations, the Epstein files have somehow sort of moved their way out of the discourse this week. Not somehow. So I'm sure many of you heard, in case you didn't, the current occupant of the Oval Office, which is how I will refer to him indefinitely, earlier this week shared a photo of the Obamas' faces on apes. I'm not surprised. We're not gonna link it. We're not gonna share it. You've seen it. Again, this is the same thing that goes with the whole sharing videos of people being shot and killed. I don't need to see it. Number one. Other people don't need to see it. Number two. Number three, we told you this man was this way for 11 years. We've been saying it. So I'm not in the mood. I'm not going to entertain. I'm not going to encourage. I'm not going to break bread with. I'm not going to talk to. I'm not going to have patience with anyone who suddenly says, oh, here's my red line. For any of this. Because you know what needs to happen? You need to go back and make recompense. You need to go back and repent. You need to go back and see why in the hell your red line had to be so thick and so bright red for you to understand what people and other marginalized folks have been telling you since he walked down the freaking escalator in June of 2015. I'll go even further, because black people have been saying this forever, because this is the same chump whose daddy was out here racially discriminating against people in rentals way back in New York in the 50s and 60s. This is the same dumbass who said he hates the Central Park Five and wants to see the death penalty brought back for them. Took out a whole page ad in the New York Times. Right, there's the same guy. So this is what I want to say. All y'all who come out here thinking, oh yeah, what's going on now is crazy. Or I got encouraged, or I got persuaded to get involved, when J6 happened, or when Trump did this, that, and the third. All you're really saying underneath, and you don't know you're saying it, so let me tell you. All you're really saying underneath is that you didn't give a flying flip about what black and brown and other marginalized people told you about Donald Trump from the 90s. That's what you're saying. You lived in your ivory tower of privilege. Right? And you did not care what black and brown people had to tell you about then. You didn't care what a lot of women had to tell you about him then either. That's what you're saying. You think you've come to some grand illusion of righteousness and enlightenment. All you're really doing is saying how obtuse and how much you didn't care about other people who have told you about this man for decades since. That's all you're doing. And before you muster up your little lips to say that comment that makes you feel like, oh, I'm on the side of progressive, I'm on the side of marginalized people. Nah, bruh. All you're really saying is you didn't care, you didn't give a flying damn about these people and what they said they were going through beforehand. And that's okay if you want to admit that, but make sure you admit that before you say the other line. That's all you're doing.
Look, people want to come in our comment section talking about virtue signaling. We're not the ones. It's not. You can check the receipts. We're not the ones. For context, now may be a good time to mention that because today is a very abbreviated episode, all we're doing is just hot takes. Just what's pissed us off very recently that we can rant about without needing notes for about half the time we normally spend ranting with notes, and then we're going to ship it off.
This is the hot takes episode. All right, Super Bowl's coming up in like an hour. It's just, which I think will also give y'all a little bit of insight into like, hey, we actually do a lot of reading and a lot of research for this show normally, and so we'll get back to that next week. That's what you've been getting. That's what you'll get in the future. This one is full hot take. Hope you enjoy it. It's kind of like 15 minutes in, but it's fine. Yeah. I didn't tie this into the Epstein files. The last thing I'll say is just like, I think it's pathetic. I think it speaks to where we are as a society. I think it speaks to a lot of different things that we can sort of talk a little bit more about later, and ones that I want to flush out in a written piece on Substack. In that there are so many high-profile people whose names have surfaced here that not being the breaking news story, wall-to-wall coverage on every TV station, every cable outlet, every online publication all week provides a point of reference, provides an ideal, for lack of a better term, of just how far we have to go, how much work there is to do, and how long it is going to take to put this country back on any reasonable civilized playing field. There's a whole sector of the opposite political party, of the Republican Party, who spent endless amounts of taxpayer money, by the way, investigating the former President Biden's son. And I think, look, Hunter's got some issues. He'd be the first one to tell you. But you want to know what my boy did? You want to know what he seemed to have enjoyed? He seemed to have enjoyed doing copious amounts of illicit drugs with adult consenting sex workers. And this is what I need everybody to understand. You can disagree with the way someone lives their life. That is totally fine. But when it comes especially to anything that involves sex, there are two things that I think are non-negotiable when we're talking morality. One of them is this person of the age to consent to sex. That is a big one. We have universally decided that the age of 18, in some places 17, and others 16. I'm not going to get into the nuances of state law. By and large, we have determined that 18 is that age. That might be too low for some folks, and I get it. And then we get into issues of predatory behavior and so on and so forth. But by and large, 18 years old, age of consent. Number two is what was the nature of said relationship. And what I mean by that is, my man Hunter Biden, he seemed to have a penchant for Latina and Hispanic women. Okay? Cool. Great. As far as I'm concerned, that was all consensual behavior. Now, could he be an immoral jackass? Sure. Right? Can there be some things that aren't all the way screwed in his head? Sure. Might he enjoy certain behaviors that you would deem lesser than or not up to the standard of someone occupying the Oval Office? Sure. That has nothing to do with his dad, right? He's a grown man. Adults don't determine what their children do. And if you think so, you got kids, you better wait till they get older. Okay? I know we all like to pretend we can control what our children do. You should ask Ronald Reagan if that's the case. That's number one. Number two, there is not a world, and this is where I'll shut up and then it's all your go, Cat. And we're going to have some more time here. There is not a world where we put people who have consensual extramarital relationships in with people who have a penchant for sexual relationships that aren't consensual in any way. And I'm grouping underage children in there because I do see we're getting a little too comfortable, like saying people who enjoy things that we would consider illicit yet consensual. We're getting a little too comfortable putting that in the same bucket as sexual assault, sexual harassment, sexual violence. And that is one thing I want to name, right? There's not a world where those two things belong in the same bucket, okay? You can disagree with someone, you can disagree with the family the family sort of image that they built up for themselves, etc., all right? But there's not a world where what Hunter Biden did falls into the same classification as anything the president has allegedly done in the Epstein files or anybody else's name in there. All right, those are completely separate things. They're not in the same stratosphere. We got to stop with this whole sense of one lane of morality. Morality always has and always will in civilized societies have multiple lanes. All right, the last thing I'll say, for example, if I were to go out here as a married man and have a consensual adult relationship with another woman, am I a terrible human being for that? Perhaps.
Some might say.
Some might say. Is that on the same playing field as going out here and forcing someone to have sex against their will? Hell no. Is that on the same playing field as going out here and being part of some racket to where people are exchanging human beings for sexual services that are against their will? Hell no. Like, we gotta have a very and I don't even think that's a really low bar to clear, but we gotta clear that. Hot Take Sunday out from Big.
Wait, Hunter's not in the files, is he?
No, he's not. I saw tweets where people were like, we're talking about all this with Trump, but Hunter Biden got off scotch-free. This is a conservative argument, apparently.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's the connection. That's the connection. Congress spent all this time and all this money wanting to investigate Hunter and his laptops and this, that, and the other for probably levels of corruption that are not ideal but unsurprising from that economic class, which is, and I can't stress this enough, politically agnostic, party agnostic.
Yeah.
And then we're doing all this tap dancing to try and justify why people are in the files. Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not exactly going to put Hunter Biden as a member of the Dudes Rock caucus, but what I will say is that I feel like we should be focusing on the people who are making decisions right now, today, who are in those files, making decisions about the way our government functions, making decisions about our economy, making decisions as the heads of multinational corporations. But that's just me. There's something else in the files that really I had to reel myself back in because I was starting to get real upset about it. And I was like, I got other shit I got to spend my energy on this week. So we'll just continue with the theme of the files. Something else that happened over the last week is that, once again, people have decided to look at the full scope of humanity's capability to be wholly devoid of goodness and said, it's gotta be demons. It's definitely Satan that's driving this. And we're once again back to pagan cults and child sacrifice and cannibalism, and it's adrenochrome is going to come back into the discussion at some point, just like it did not that long ago. And at some point we'll get to an episode where at some point we'll do our Ebony and Ivory episode where we talk about all of the things that make us so very different from one another. And yet, here we are, the greatest of friends with incredible respect for one another. But one of the ways in which you and I are very different is in our personal faith and belief systems. And so when things like this happen, it impacts me, sometimes in very indirect ways, sometimes in very direct ways, because people, broadly speaking, have very little understanding of their own faith, much less anybody else's. Yeah. And I'm talking specifically about the sort of like nominal cultural evangelical Christians in this country. Because if they really understood their faith, they wouldn't be nominal cultural Christians. But that's your lane. But they sure as shit don't know anything about anybody else's religion. So the story goes, one of the files, there was a piece of evidence of Epstein making a deposit to a bank. And the field that normally would be where bank name is written, it was what appears to be a typo, a very unfortunate one. And it says ball name instead of bank name. If you look at a QWERTY keyboard, it's real easy to see how that could happen.
Yeah.
By the way, but I digress. It says ball name, Wachovia Bank. So anybody with a 5th grade reading comprehension level could look at that and go, oh, that's a typo. It's bank name because then the bank name is listed, right? No, where people ran to immediately was see, those are the same people who are doing child sacrifice to the cult of Baal and devil worship and then pagans like me are sitting here going, sorry, what? It never, and it makes me so upset for so many reasons. The least of which, to be honest with you, is like my own personal safety, but it pisses me off because the most pedantic reason, I'll start with that because that's the easiest to detach myself from emotionally. Because when I start to think about the other things that I have more of an emotional attachment to as to why it upsets me, I get a little emotional. But the pedantic thing, the cult of Baal, okay. Since I have elite Baal knowledge, I'll just let everyone know right now that Baal is not the name of one specific deity from Middle Eastern or Mesopotamian antiquity. Baal is a term that literally meant, and if you look in ancient texts, mostly written in Ugaritic, and if you don't know what that is, then you don't get to fucking speak on this with any level of authority at all. You'll know that there was Baal-zebub, which is where Beelzebub has often come into play. There was Baal-zephon. There was Baal-hadad. The image that if you look at these news stories and posts, the image that is shown more often than not is actually of the Canaanite deity Moloch. Now, Moloch was probably addressed as Baal, and I can't remember what his Ugaritic name was, but it became Moloch, I think, in like Hebrew. Anyway, not the same thing. Not even close to the same thing. It is also true that at that period of time, human sacrifice was not something that never happened, but it was something that very rarely happened. I'm also going to take this opportunity to remind people who might think that they have some type of moral or ethical high ground on this matter because they are part of the Abrahamic tradition.
Stop it.
I'd like to remind you of Abraham.
I knew you were going there.
You knew I was going there because it's in the book.
It's in the book.
My brother in Christ. It's in the book. And they're like, oh, God saved Isaac. He didn't have to do it. I'm like, that's not the point. The point is that man was really gonna do that to his son. I digress. every time this happened, people who are polytheistic, which is not the same thing necessarily as pagan, by the way. Actually, it's not necessarily. It's not the same thing as pagan. Not all pagans are polytheistic and not all polytheists are pagans. But every time this shit happens, pagans and polytheists especially get inundated with all types of harassment from people, calling us child killers, which, as somebody that's been pro-choice quite literally my entire life, I'm used to being called that.
Yeah.
But we get called child killers, we get told all these horrible things about us, we get death threats sent to us. And so it's like ginning up all of this satanic panic shit again. It's the same shit that got the West Memphis Three locked up forever. Not forever ever, but for a long time. It's the same shit that drove so many like lovely people underground in fear. It is a type of religious persecution, which is ironic because everybody in these files, including Deepak Chopra,
Big time.
is the furthest thing that I could think of when I think of somebody that is imbued at all with any type of divine spark.
I knew you was going there with Abraham. It's in the book. And I also would flag, sometimes I'm like I think I preached, it was maybe years ago, but I brought that up. And I encouraged the congregation to put themselves in the shoes of Isaac. That kid wasn't stupid. At a certain point, he knew what was happening. But anyway, all that to say, you're absolutely correct. But part of that is people don't know what they believe in. I mean, you hinted at that. But like, to carry on about the noms, like, people don't have a sense of, like, and I think that's like, you know, obviously, you know, we couldn't be more, like you said, further apart in terms of sort of faith traditions. But like, look, man, let me say this in the most blunt way possible. If you're going to go around here claiming that you believe in a guy who was perfect and lived a perfect life and was born a virgin and like died on the cross, had like stuff piercing his head and holes in his hands, right? And that same dude like was dead and then was undead, right? And then that same dude like ascended back to this place called heaven and sits like next to God and intercedes on your behalf. Like, that same dude gonna come back to judge you and raise people from their graves. You need to know what it is you claim you believe in. Like, you gotta do a little bit more digging there, right? And that's the biggest issue. Like, look, you're never gonna believe that, and that doesn't matter to me. And I think we've talked about this for years. But if you're gonna say that you believe something as asinine as that sounds, and as someone who is I'm a pastor, right? As someone who is that, I can sit here and tell you I know how crazy that sounds. I at least can sit here and have a very articulate conversation about why I believe those things to be true. But as crazy as that is, if you're going to live your life saying you believe in it, come on, y'all. We got to do better. Got to do better. Got to do better. Also, everything is not Satan's fault. It's not. It's not. If you believe in Satan, it ain't his fault. The President of the United States, like in children, not his fault, right? Deepak Chopra going around emailing Jeffrey Epstein over and over, not his fault. Kanye is canceled, but that one line where he was like, I know some dudes who went to that island. Why would you go to that island? The folks who went to that island, that's not Satan. That's just pure evil human beings making a choice based off power, privilege, corruption, and not having empathy.
Yep.
I'll take something.
Yep. I completely agree. And we don't have time for it today, but I cannot wait until the day it makes sense for us to have a conversation that involves exegesis of the Bible so we can help people understand where the name Satan comes from and how to understand that term in the broader cosmology. Because it's not one dude who's like red and has horns and has a little pitchfork.
Oh, that is a cultural development, y'all.
Anyway.
I thought you had another rant. We got time. What's your other
We do?
Take?
Yeah, okay.
I want the other hot take.
Oh, man. I want to go on that rant now, but we'll save it. Okay. My other rant this week is for people who are saying we're cooked. And let me define this audience a little bit more.
That was me for a minute. I'm not going to lie. That was me for 2 minutes, maybe a minute. And then you corrected me.
Let me define this audience a little bit more. People who are on the left and also are like, we're cooked. My rant is for you. I am asking you, even though The volume of my voice is a little bit higher than normal. I'm not yelling, I'm not admonishing you. I am passionately calling you in. I'm asking the team to just take a knee and let's have a conversation about something. Stop that shit. It's not helpful. It's not helping anybody. Let me put it to you this way. If I'm just a regular layperson, I have no scientific training whatsoever, and I come across an article that says there's an asteroid headed for the Earth. And I get freaked out and I share it and I say, oh my God, there's an asteroid headed for the Earth. We're all going to die. This is going to be another extinction event. You could reasonably say, hey, it's actually not cool for you to be spreading that stuff unless you really understand what you're talking about. And then for me, the onus is on me as the sharer to go, did I read the article? Did I try and understand it? Did I do this, that, and the other? There is a burden of proof, I think, that is not on you to be an astronomer, right? If I'm an astronomer, and I see that there is an asteroid that is headed toward the Earth's orbit, but all of the calculations that I'm seeing say that it's the probability of it like hitting Earth, not super high, but it's non-zero. And I start going around telling people, oh yeah, there's actually an asteroid that's headed toward Earth and it's going to be inside of our orbit. And that's all the information that I share. I am responsible on a much deeper level for any manifestation of panic that I sow into the people that I'm saying that to. I make this analogy because I want to illustrate the difference between people on the left who have read any type of real theory, done any type of real organizing work, made it through any dark nights of the soul collectively, as many of us have done before. You have an obligation and a responsibility to cut that shit out. And if you feel like you are spiraling or you are like totally doom pilled, that's not a necessarily wrong. That's normal. Those are normal reactions to the world that we're in right now. But then you have to do what is necessary to take care of yourself, even if that's reaching out to people that you trust who aren't going to take what you're saying and immediately catastrophize it. But what we have to do, instead of spreading our panic and our fear like the flu, we have to buck up just a little bit, pull our shit together, and have a modicum of decorum about ourselves, expect more from ourselves, and start engendering a sense of revolutionary optimism in ourselves and the people in our immediate circles who we're actually organizing with, and then reverberating that out beyond into other people. That is the only way that we get out of this. And I guess my hot take about all of this is that the audience that I previously defined that I'm speaking to now, so people on the left who are like, we're cooked. My hot take is that you're wrong, but not because I'm smarter than you. My hot take is that you're wrong because you simply don't possess the imagination to think about building what comes next or even conceiving of it, because you are still operating within the understanding that a patriarchal, white supremacist, capitalist framework for society is the only way that we can exist. That worldview is cooked. You are correct. It is done. The old world is dying. It is our responsibility to help other people conceive of the new world that is struggling to be born and to struggle with them to bring it into fruition. So do whatever sort of spiraling and like doom scrolling and panicking and crying you need to do fucking somewhere else where other people who don't know what you know can't see it. Do it with people that you trust and who know you and who you know. And then, chin up, tits out, organize. There is no other way. Done.
Amen.
Muting myself.
Amen. Yes. I would also say, I would argue that most people have a responsibility to do that. That is both your philosophical responsibility, but it's also your responsibility as an American. Like, I think I caught myself a few weeks ago when I was like, oh, we're so cooked. And I wised up in 30 seconds. It's like, nope, hope is a discipline. Shut your ass up. Go smoke a J or whatever you need to do, and then sort of get back to it. And for those of you who don't know us in real life, and that's okay, you'd be forgiven. Like, we actually do like this stuff, like outside of like talking here, sitting on a laptop, like, you know, feed people that are hungry and visit prisons and organize and fund all other stuff. And so to sort of say yes and to that, like, there is an argument. What the other side wants, and you're going to hear this a lot this year, and you're going to see it in symbolism because it's 250th anniversary of the United States Constitution. There is a not so insignificant contingent of people who believe and want you to believe that America is not an idea, but that America is a certain set of people with a particular shared values, a particular set of shared values, and a particular history. And I am here to vehemently discredit that as the worst level of hypocrisy known to man. Right? America is an idea. America is a set of ideals. And I think they want us to start believing that it's just a set of people with shared values and history and so on and so forth, so that it makes it easier for them to practice eugenic science and to push us all to the other side of the ocean, or just simply to our deaths. You'll remember this because there was a tweet or something, a social media post, that the president and someone close to the president shared not too long ago, where it had a picture of a tree and the ocean in the background, and I think the lady captioned it, "This is America after 100 million sort of immigrants are deported." There aren't 100 million immigrants in this country to begin with. They are saying the quiet part aloud. It's right now it's people from Mexico and Guatemala and Haiti and other places. All right, it doesn't end there unless we force it to end there. And what I am saying is that whenever someone has the nerve to comment or walk up to you during a protest or organize and say, "Hey, you can't care about someone that much. It can't be real," or, "Oh, we're so cooked," we are not cooked. We are Americans. See, what they've done with this whole sense of patriotism is done a complete 180, and they know exactly what they're doing. But I'm a whole-ass lawyer who read the entire Constitution several times. This is a very unique place in the sense that this is an ideal and ideals, and as long as we are devoted to that, we have the ability to create something that has not been thought of before. Because need we remind you, this whole concept, this idea of a government being empowered by its people and not vice versa, was born out of revolution, was born out of violence, was born out of a collective people coming together and saying, "No, I'm not going to live under that, and in that system, I'm going to imagine something new." Don't let these folks make you feel like it always has to be this way, because the way it is now isn't the way that it was before.
Are you saying that maybe America is really the friends that we made along the way?
Yes. That, all I say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
Maybe the real America was the neighbors that we radicalized along the way.
I'm just saying. We can still make this place whatever we want it to be. Now, short term, the oligarchs they got a 3-1 lead. They got a 3-1 lead short term. So.
Yeah, it's okay to be realistic about where we are now, right? And that has to be part of it. Like, the simplest way to define revolutionary optimism is pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will. So it's not truly revolutionary optimism if you're looking at everything through like head in the sand mentality or rose-colored glasses, or even through the way that like establishment Democrats are framing it now. This just isn't who we are as a country. Bitch, yes it is.
Stop it.
Yes it is. But it doesn't have to be who we become. It doesn't have to be who we are in the future. So pessimism of the intellect is understanding how exigent the conditions are right now, how dire the conditions are right now. Optimism of the will is believing in yourself and believing in the people enough to know that we have it within ourselves to overcome this, because where there's people, there's power.
Politics is
now
usual.
I'm ready to go eat some potato skins and watch Bad.
Y'all be great out there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the episode, share it with your homies across social, digital, whatever it is. Alright, we'll be back next week with a less than hot take episode. This was fun though. We gotta put this in the rotation. I like this.
Yeah, we gotta do this like once a month or something.
Yeah. Hopefully y'all like it too. We'll be back. Politics as usual.